Think about the last person you fell in love with, or the last person you were drawn to. That particular pull, that specific feeling of recognition, that sense of this one before you even knew their name. Now, I want you to consider something that might be the most uncomfortable thing you hear today. You did not choose that person, not really. Something chose them for you. Something older than your preferences, older than your type, older than any conscious decision you have ever made about who you want to be with. And until you understand what that something is, you will keep choosing the same person in different bodies with different names across every relationship of your life. I know this because I lived it. And I know it because I found the way out. Stay with me. My name is Kat Swan. Everything I share here comes from lived experience, from 6 years of clearing ancestral patterns, healing inherited programs, and restoring an inner union that changed not just how I relate to others, but how I understand love entirely. Today I want to talk about something that sits at the intersection of neuroscience, ancestral healing, and the most intimate corners of your emotional life. Why you keep attracting the same relationship dynamic no matter how different the person seems at first. What your parents' relationship and their parents' relationship before them actually programmed into your nervous system about what love is, what it feels like, and crucially, what it is supposed to cost you. And the original angle I want to bring to this conversation, the one I have not heard discussed the way I am going to discuss it today, is this. You are not just choosing with your wounds, you are choosing with your ancestors' wounds. And those are not the same thing. And the difference between understanding that distinction and not understanding it is a difference between healing the pattern and simply managing it. Let's begin. Before you were born, before you took your first breath, before you had a single experience of your own, your nervous system was already being shaped. Not randomly, not neutrally. By the emotional environment of the womb, by the relationship between your parents that surrounded you from conception, by the unresolved emotional patterns of every ancestor in your lineage, encoded in your DNA, not as abstract inheritance, but as a living, active program running in your body right now. This is not a metaphor. The field of epigenetics, the study of how experience changes gene expression across generations, has established that trauma, stress patterns, and emotional responses are inherited biologically. Studies on the descendants of Holocaust survivors show measurable differences in cortisol regulation, the body's stress response, that were not learned but inherited. Studies of the descendants of famine survivors show the same. The body carries what the ancestors experienced, not as a story but as a physiological reality. Now bring that into your living room. Your parents had a relationship. That relationship had a specific emotional texture, a particular dynamic between the masculine and the feminine in your home, a specific quality of love, a specific quality of conflict, a specific understanding of what intimacy looks and feels like, what safety means between two people, what you do when things get hard, whether love is reliable or conditional, whether closeness is safe or dangerous. You did not observe this dynamic from a distance. You were marinated in it. Every day from the moment you were born, your nervous system was learning, not through lessons but through absorption. This is what love is. This is what it feels like. This is what it costs. This is what it requires of you. And here is the part that changes everything. The nervous system does not evaluate whether what it learned is healthy. It simply learns it as normal. And then it spends the rest of your life recreating normal, because normal is the only template it has for what love is supposed to feel like. Here is what I want to say that I have not heard said quite this way before. Most conversations about relationship patterns focus on your own childhood wounds, what happened to you, how your attachment style formed, how your specific experiences of being loved or not loved shaped what you reach for in a partner. That is true, and it is important, and it is incomplete. Because layered beneath your personal wounds, beneath what happened to you in this lifetime, is an entire architecture of inherited emotional programming that existed before you were born. Your parents' wounds. Their parents' wounds, generations of unresolved patterns around love, safety, masculinity, femininity, union, and separation. All of it passed down not as stories, but as silent bodily knowing. Here is how to feel the difference. Your personal wound says, I am afraid of abandonment because my father left when I was 4. Your ancestral program says, love always leaves. It has always left. It left before your father. It left in his father. It left in his father's father. The leaving is not your story. It is the family story, and you inherited it as the emotional truth of love itself. Not as a belief you chose, but as the water you have always swum in. This distinction matters enormously for healing, because if you only work with your personal wound, the 4-year-old whose father left, you address one layer of a much deeper pattern. You may heal that specific wound and find the pattern continues in subtler form in different dynamics with different people, because the ancestral layer was never touched. This is why so many people do significant personal healing work and still find themselves in the same relationship dynamic. They healed the branch, the root is still running. Let me make this specific. Let me name some of the most common programs that the parents' relationships install in children, not through intention, but through daily invisible transmission. Love is earned, not given freely. If one or both of your parents withheld affection until you performed, achieved, behaved, succeeded, didn't cause trouble, your nervous system learned that love is conditional, that you must continuously earn your right to be loved. You will choose partners who confirm this, partners who are withholding, who keep you working for their approval, who make you feel that love is always slightly out of reach unless you do enough. Love and anxiety live together. If a love in your home was real but unpredictable, warm one moment and withdrawn the next, loving and then explosive, your nervous system paired love with anxiety as its natural companion. Calm, consistent, reliable love will feel wrong to you, boring, lacking chemistry. The anxiety is the love in this program. You will choose partners who keep you slightly off balance, because that feeling is what your nervous system has filed under love. Love requires you to make yourself smaller. If one parent consistently disappeared, emotionally, physically, through addiction or depression or simply absence, and the other parent organized their entire existence around managing or compensating for that disappearance, you learn that love means self-erasure. That to love someone is to lose yourself in their needs, their moods, their reality. You will choose partners who need to be managed, because management is what your nervous system learned love looks like. Love is a battlefield. If conflict in your home was how intimacy was expressed, if your parents were most alive and most connected in argument, your nervous system learned that conflict is closeness, that the absence of drama means the absence of passion. You will choose partners who fight with you, because fighting is how your body knows it is close to someone. Love always disappoints. If your parents' relationship carried a quality of chronic resignation, staying together but fundamentally disconnected, going through the emotions of a life rather than living one, you absorb disappointment as the inevitable destination of love. You may begin relationships with hope and find that you unconsciously engineer the moment of disappointment, because your nervous system needs to confirm that it always knew what was coming. None of these programs are yours. None of them are the truth about love. They are inherited maps, drawn by people who were themselves working from inherited maps, that have been directing your choices without your knowledge or consent. Now, go one layer deeper. Your parents learned their relationship template from their parents. Who learned it from theirs? And who learned it from theirs? Which means the pattern you are living, the dynamic you keep recreating, may be 4, 5, 6 generations old. It may have originated in a time and circumstance completely unlike your own life. A great-great-grandmother who had to marry for survival rather than love, and shut her heart down completely to manage it. A great-grandfather who learned that masculine strength meant emotional absence. A pattern of women in your line who gave everything and received little and called it devotion. A pattern of men who loved fiercely and then disappeared, to war, to work, to addiction, to death, and left the wound of abandonment as their inheritance to every child and grandchild who came after. You are not choosing your partners. You are running a search program compiled across generations for the emotional feeling that your nervous system has filed under love, and it finds it every time with uncanny precision. The person who confirms the program feels like recognition, like coming home, like this is the one. And it is coming home to the only version of love your nervous system has ever known, which is not the same as a healthy version of love. It is simply the familiar one. This is why you cannot think your way out of these patterns. You cannot decide to choose differently, because the choosing is not happening in the part of you that decides things. It is happening in the body, in the nervous system, in the inherited blueprint running beneath every conscious preference you think you have. So what do you do with this? The first thing, and it is not small, is simply to see it. To understand that the pattern is not a character flaw, not a failure of judgment, not evidence that you are broken or bad at love. It is a program, inherited, running automatically, and programs can be interrupted. Programs can be cleared. Programs can be replaced, not with affirmations or positive thinking, but with actual energetic work at the level where the program lives, in the body, in the nervous system, in the ancestral field. The second thing is to begin the work of healing the inner templates, specifically the inner mother and the inner father, because every relationship you will ever have is at its foundation shaped by the relationship between these two inner figures. the quality of the inner masculine and the inner feminine within you, how they relate to each other, whether they are in conflict or in union, whether one dominates or one disappears, determines what you seek and what you tolerate in every outer relationship. This is the work of inner union, and it is the most direct path to genuinely changing what your nervous system reaches for. The third thing is to go into the ancestral line directly, not just to understand it intellectually, to actually do the energetic work of returning to your ancestors what was theirs to carry, releasing what was passed down that was never yours to inherit, and clearing the timeline so that their pattern ends with you. And from my own personal experience, this is one of the most powerful works that you can ever do. This is a timeline healing work, and when it is done, not just understood but actually done in the body, the search program changes. What feels like recognition shifts. What feels like home begins to expand. You stop choosing the wound and you begin slowly, carefully for the first time to choose something real. I want to leave you with this. The fact that your ancestors are choosing your partners is not a life sentence. It is information. It is the most important information you may ever receive about why your love life looks the way it does. Because once you can see the program, you are no longer entirely inside it. And once you are no longer entirely inside it, something becomes possible that was not possible before. Choice, real choice. Not the unconscious recreation of a familiar, but a genuine embodied reaching for something new. But the reaching is not easy. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of what healthy love feels like when your nervous system has never learned it. And it will feel wrong at first, unfamiliar, lacking in chemistry, too quiet, too safe. You will have to learn to trust the quiet, to choose the safe, to stay when your nervous system wants to run toward the familiar chaos it has always called love. But you can do this. I know because I did it, not overnight, not without difficulty, but completely. If you want the tools that supported that process, the actual energetic practices for clearing ancestral programs from the body, for healing the inner mother and father, for doing timeline healing work that changes what you reach for at the level where reaching actually happens, everything I use is linked below. And if this video found you at the right moment, please share it with someone who needs it. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for another person is simply say, I found something that helped me understand here. I will see you in the next one.